Lihanna pressed her face against the cold window of the research station. Far in the distance, she could see it. The burning ice, even from 50 miles away. The deadly ice field looked like a wall of white light stretching across the horizon. "You are looking at it again," said Kim Tai-ho as he walked into the room. He carried 2 cups of hot coffee and handed one to Hannah. "I cannot help it," Hannah said, taking the warm cup. "It calls to me." Tai-ho sat down next to his friend. They had been working together on this frozen planet for 2 years. The aliens say it is death to go there. No one has ever crossed it and lived. Hannah turned away from the window. But what if they are wrong? What if there is a way? The research station was home to 30 humans and over 200 aliens from different worlds. They all came here to study Cathara, a planet covered in ice and snow. The aliens had built their cities in the south where it was safer. But they never tried to explore the north because of the burning ice. The burning ice was strange. It was frozen solid, but it gave off light that could kill you. The ice sent out invisible rays that made living things sick. It was so cold that metal would break like glass. And it was so bright that it could blind you even through special glasses. "The morning meeting starts in 10 minutes, Tai-ho said. "Commander Veltar wants to talk about the new mining plans." Hannah nodded but did not move from the window. She had read every report about the burning ice. 300 years ago, the first alien explorers had tried to cross it. They sent 50 brave soldiers with the best equipment. None came back. After that, many other groups tried. Some used special suits, others used flying ships. A few tried to go around the edges. They all failed. The burning ice killed them all, but Hannah was human. Humans were different. They did not give up easily. The meeting room was full when Hannah and Tai-ho arrived. Commander Veltar stood at the front. He was tall and blue with 4 arms. His people, the Zephyrians, were known for being careful and smart. "Today we will discuss the new mining operation in Sector 7, Veltar said in his deep voice. "The metal deposits there will provide resources for our expanding colony." Hannah raised her hand. "Commander, what about the resources beyond the burning ice?" The room became quiet. All eyes turned to Hannah. Some aliens made worried sounds. "Dr. Lee," Veltar said slowly, "we have discussed this before. The northern regions are forbidden. The burning ice cannot be crossed. But the old scans show huge deposits of rare metals there," Hannah said. "And the ancient ruins. We could learn so much." Bae Soo-min, the human xenobiologist, gave Hannah a worried look. She was older than Hannah and had been studying alien life for 20 years. "Hannah, please, do not push this topic." An alien scientist named Korth stood up. His people looked like giant insects with 6 legs. "The human speaks of things that should not be spoken. The burning ice is a grave. We do not disturb graves." "It is not a grave," Hannah said, standing up. "It is just ice." "Dangerous ice, yes, but still just ice, and ice can be crossed." Commander Veltar's 4 arms moved in what humans had learned. Was a sign of great concern. "Dr. Lee, your species is known for being ... bold. But this boldness has limits. The burning ice has no limits. It will kill you." "The scans show that the ice is not the same everywhere," Hannah continued. "There are paths where the radiation is weaker. There are areas where the temperature is higher. Maybe, with the right equipment and the right knowledge, someone could find a way." The room exploded with noise. Aliens talked in their own languages, making sounds of fear and anger. The humans looked uncomfortable. "E-N-O-U." Commander Veltar's voice boomed through the room. "This discussion is over. No one will attempt to cross the burning ice. This is not a request. This is an order." After the meeting, Hannah walked alone through the station's corridors. The walls were made of metal and plastic, but they were painted with bright colors to make the place feel more alive. Pictures of different worlds hung on the walls, showing green forests and blue oceans that existed far away. She stopped at her favorite picture. It showed an ancient Earth, back when huge animals called mammoths walked across the frozen lands. The big, hairy creatures had long tusks and wise eyes. They were strong and brave, and they survived in the coldest places on Earth. They are beautiful. Are they not? Said a voice behind her. Hannah turned to see Dr. Park Jawan, a geneticist who had arrived on the last supply ship. She was new to the station but had quickly become known for her brilliant mind. Yes, Hannah said. I have always loved mammoths. They were so strong, they could survive anywhere. I have been reading about this planet's history, Jawan said. You know that Kithara once had its own mammoths? Hannah's eyes widened. Really? Oh yes. Much bigger than Earth's mammoths. They lived here millions of years ago, before the ice came. The old alien records mention them. They called them the Ice Walkers. What happened to them? They died out when the planet got colder, but Jiwan looked around to make sure. No. Juan was listening. I found something interesting in the deep ice samples. Something that might change everything. Hannah felt her heart beat faster. What did you find? DNA, mammoth DNA, but it is not like normal fossils. This DNA is perfect. It is like it has been waiting for someone to find it. That night, Hannah could not sleep. She stood at her window again, looking at the burning ice. The light from the ice field danced across the dark sky like an aurora. It was beautiful and terrible at the same time. She thought about the mammoths, the ice walkers. What if they were the key? What if nature had already found a way to cross the burning ice, millions of years ago? Taiho found her there in the morning, still standing at the window. You did not sleep, he said. I had an idea, Hannah said. A crazy idea? Those are usually your best ideas, Taiho said with a smile. Hannah turned to face her friend. In her eyes, he could see the fire that made humans different from all other species. The fire that made them explorers and dreamers and survivors. What if we could bring them back? She asked. What if we could wake the ice walkers? 3 weeks after the meeting, Hannah found herself in the deepest part of the research station. The basement laboratory was cold and quiet. Only the sound of machines humming filled the air. She was not supposed to be here alone, but she had to see the ice samples for herself. Dr. Park Jiwan had been right. The DNA was perfect. You should not be here, said a voice behind her. Hannah turned to see Jiwan standing in the doorway. The geneticist looked tired but excited. I could not sleep, Hannah said. I keep thinking about what you told me. About the ice walkers. Jiwan walked over to the sample container. Inside, pieces of ancient ice glowed with a soft blue light. I have been studying them every night. The DNA is not just preserved, it is active. What do you mean, active? Normal DNA breaks down over time, but this DNA is different. It is like it has been waiting, like it wants to live again. Hannah stared at the ice samples. Could we bring one back? Could we make a living mammoth? Jiwan was quiet for a long moment. Maybe, but it would be dangerous. The aliens would never allow it. The aliens do not have to know. The next morning, Hannah met with Kim Taiho and Bae Sumin in the station's small cafe. The room was warm and filled with the smell of coffee and bread. Human food was rare on Kithara, but the supply ships brought enough to make them feel at home. You look like you have not slept in days, Sumin said, studying Hannah's face. I have been thinking, Hannah said. About the mammoths, about the burning ice. Taiho put down his coffee cup. Hannah, you promised you would not do anything foolish. This is not foolish, this is science. Hannah leaned forward. What if the mammoths were not just animals that lived here? What if they were the solution? Solution to what? Sumin asked. To crossing the burning ice. Think about it. They lived here for millions of years. They survived the cold. They must have found a way to deal with the radiation. Sumin shook her head. Even if that is true, they are all dead. They have been dead for millions of years, but their DNA is not dead. Taiho's eyes widened. You're talking about bringing one back to life. Jawan says it might be possible. The DNA is in perfect condition, almost like it has been waiting for us to find it. This is crazy, Sumin said. Even if we could do it, the aliens would stop us. Commander Veltar would send U.S. back to Earth. Only if he finds out, Hannah said. That afternoon, Hannah and Jawan began their secret project. They worked in the old storage room in the basement. The room was full of broken equipment and old supplies. No one ever came down here. First, we need to understand what made these mammoths special, Jawan said. She had brought her portable DNA scanner and several sample containers. They worked for hours, studying the genetic code of the ancient creatures. What they found was amazing. Look at this, Jawan said, pointing to her scanner. These mammoths had special cells in their fur. Cells that could absorb radiation and change it into something harmless. They could eat the radiation? Hannah asked. In a way, yes. And look at this part of their DNA. It controls their body temperature. They could make themselves warmer or cooler as needed. They were perfect for this planet, Hannah said with wonder. There is more, Jawan continued. Their brains were very advanced. They had excellent memory. They could remember paths and dangers across huge distances. Hannah felt her heart beating. Faster, they were not just animals, they were survivors. They were explorers. Over the next few weeks, the two women worked every night. They learned more about the Ice Walkers than anyone had ever known. The mammoths had been intelligent, almost as smart as humans. They had worked together in families. And most importantly, they had lived alongside another species. The old records mention them, Jawan said, showing Hannah a translated text. The people who lived here before the Ice Age. They called themselves the first ones. What happened to them? They left. When the planet got too cold, they went to the stars, but they could not take the mammoths with them. Hannah studied the ancient text. It says here that the first ones and the mammoths had a bond. They worked together. They trusted each other, like partners, Jawan said. The first ones would ride on the mammoths' backs. The mammoths would carry them across the dangerous ice fields. Just like we need to cross the burning ice now. 1 month after they started their secret work, Hannah and Jawan had their first success. They had created a single mammoth cell in a laboratory dish. The cell was alive and growing. It is working, Jawan whispered, staring at the cell under her microscope. It is actually working, but their secret did not last long. The next morning, Commander Veltar called an emergency meeting. It has come to my attention, the commander said, his forearms crossed over his chest, that some of our researchers have been conducting unauthorized experiments. Hannah felt her stomach drop. Around the meeting room, aliens and humans looked at each other with worry. Genetic experiments, Veltar continued, involving extinct species from this planet. Bae Su-min looked at Hannah with fear in her eyes. Kim Tai-ho stared at the floor. Such experiments are dangerous, Veltar said. They could upset the balance of this planet's ecosystem. They could create new diseases. They could even anger the spirits of the dead. Several aliens made sounds of agreement. The insect-like Korth clicked his mandibles angrily. I want to know who is responsible, Veltar said. And I want these experiments stopped immediately. No one spoke. The room was silent except for the sound of the heating system. If no one confesses, Veltar continued, I will have to search every laboratory in this station. I will examine every computer. I will question every researcher. Hannah stood up slowly. Commander, I can explain. Sit down, Veltar said firmly. I am not finished. These experiments will stop. Any genetic material will be destroyed. Anyone involved will be sent back to their home planet on the next supply ship. He looked directly at Hannah. Do I make myself clear? Yes, Commander, Hannah said quietly. After the meeting, Hannah and Jawan met in the storage room. The single mammoth cell sat in its container, growing slowly but steadily. We have to destroy it, Jawan said sadly. If they find it, we will both be sent away. Hannah stared at the cell. It was so small, but it represented something huge. It was hope. It was possibility. It was the key to crossing the impossible. No, she said finally. We are not destroying it. We are going to help it grow. But Veltar will search everywhere. He will find it. Then we need to move fast. How long would it take to grow a full mammoth? Jawan thought for a moment. With The right equipment and the right environment, maybe 6 months, but we would need a bigger laboratory, and we would need help. Then we better start looking for help, Hannah said. That night, Hannah stood at her window again, looking at the burning ice, but this time she was not alone. In the reflection of the glass, she could see the future. She could see herself riding on the back of a great mammoth, crossing the impossible barrier, proving that humans never give up. The ice walkers were coming back, and with them the hope of crossing the burning ice. 2 weeks after Commander Veltar's warning, Hana found an unexpected ally. Oh, Minho was a former military engineer who had come to Kithara to build better heating systems for the station. He was quiet and kept to himself, but he had been watching Hannah's work with interest. "I know what you are doing," he said one evening when he found Hannah alone in the cafe. Hannah's heart jumped. "I do not know what you mean." "The mammoth," Minho said simply. "You are trying to bring one back to life." Hannah looked around to make sure no one was listening. "How did you know?" "I used to work with genetics in the military. I know the signs. The late-night laboratory work. The special equipment orders. The way you and Dr. Park look at each other when people mention the burning ice. Are you going to tell the commander?" Minho sat down across from her. "No, I think you are right. I think there is a way to cross the ice. And I think you might be the person to find it. Why would you help us?" "Because I am human," Minho said, "and humans do not give up. Also, I have seen the reports from the other side of the ice. The mineral deposits there could help both humans and aliens, but only if someone can cross." The next day, Minho showed Hana and Jiwan to a secret room he had found. It was deep under the station, in the old maintenance tunnels. The room was big enough for a laboratory and hidden from the station's main computers. "This used to be an emergency shelter," Minho explained. "It has its own power source and air system. And most importantly, it is not on any of the station maps." Jiwan looked around the empty room. This could work. "But we will need equipment, lots of equipment." "Leave that to me," Minho said. "I know how to get things without anyone noticing." Over. The next month, the 3 humans worked to build their secret laboratory. Minho brought equipment piece by piece. Jiwan set up the genetic machines. Hana studied everything she could find about the ice walkers. The mammoth cell was growing well. It had become a cluster of cells, then a small piece of tissue, but they needed something more. They needed to understand how the mammoths had really lived. "Look at this," Hana said one night, showing her friends an old alien text. "It is a story about the first ones and their mammoth partners." She read from the translated text. "When the ice burns with cold fire, only the great ones can walk safely. They carry their small friends across the dangerous paths. The bond between them is stronger than fear." "The bond," Jiwan repeated. "They keep mentioning a bond." "Not just friendship," Hana said, "something deeper. The first ones and the mammoths were connected somehow. They could understand each other without words." Minho frowned. "How is that possible? Maybe the mammoths were not just smart animals? Maybe they were intelligent in ways we do not understand yet." As weeks passed, their mammoth tissue grew into something that looked more like a real creature. It was still very small, but it had the beginnings of a body. They could see where the legs would be, where the trunk would grow. "We need to give it a name," Jiwan said one evening as they watched the tiny mammoth floating in its special tank. "How about Danby?" Hana suggested. "It means sweet rain in Korean, something good that comes after a long wait." "Danby," Minho said, testing the name. "I like it." But their work was becoming harder to hide. Commander Veltar had ordered random searches of the station. Alien security teams checked every room, every computer, every storage area. "They are getting closer," Minho warned. "Yesterday they searched the maintenance tunnels 2 levels up from us." "How much longer do we need?" Hana asked Jiwan. "At least 3 more months, maybe 4. Danby is growing fast, but she needs time to develop properly." "We might not have that much time," Hana said. Their fears came true the next week. Hana was working late in the hidden laboratory when she heard footsteps in the tunnel outside. She quickly shut down the machines and hid behind a supply container. 2 alien security officers walked past their door. They were talking in their own language, but Hana understood enough to know they were searching for something. After they left, Hana waited an hour before turning the machines back on. Danby was still alive, still growing, but the close call had scared her. "We need to be more careful," she told Minho and Jiwon the next day. "Or faster," Jiwon said. "I have been thinking. What if we do not wait for Danby to grow naturally? What if we speed up the process? Is that safe?" Minho asked. "Probably not, but it might be our only choice." They decided to take the risk. Jiwon changed the chemical mixture in Danby's tank. The tiny mammoth began to grow much faster. In 2 weeks, Danby had grown from the size of a mouse to the size of a cat. In another week, she was as big as a dog. Her trunk was developing. Her legs were getting stronger. And most amazing of all, she was beginning to move. "Look at her eyes," Hannah whispered one night as they watched Danby swim in her tank. "She is thinking." The mammoth's eyes were large and dark. They seemed to follow movement around the laboratory. When Hannah put her hand on the tank, Danby would swim over to touch it with her tiny trunk. "She knows us," Jiwon said with wonder. "She trusts us," Minho added, but their time was running out. Commander Veltar had called another meeting. This time, he had brought security officers from the alien fleet. "We know someone is conducting illegal experiments," he announced to the gathered humans and aliens. "We have detected unusual power usage in the lower levels of the station. We have found evidence of genetic equipment being moved." The security chief, a tall alien with silver skin, stepped forward. "We will find these criminals. And when we do, they will be arrested and sent for trial on the capital world." After the meeting, Hana felt sick with worry. Arrest meant more than just being sent home. It meant prison. "We have to move Danby," she told her friends. "Tonight." "Move her where?" Minho asked. "Somewhere safe. Somewhere they will not think to look." That night, the 3 humans carefully moved Danby's tank to a new location. Minho had found an old storage room in the station's outer ring. It was cold and uncomfortable, but it was hidden. Danby was now the size of a small horse. Her fur was thick and dark. Her trunk was strong enough to pick up objects. And her eyes showed an intelligence that made Hana's heart race with excitement. "She is beautiful," Jiwon whispered as they set up the new laboratory. "She is our hope," Hana said. The next morning brought terrible news. The security team had found their old laboratory. They had discovered the genetic equipment and the empty tanks. "We know you are here," Commander Veltar announced over the station's communication system. "We have found your laboratory. Come forward now, and your punishment will be less severe." No one came forward. "Then we will search every room, every closet, every storage area," Veltar continued. "We will find you. And we will find your creation." Hana, Jiwon, and Minho gathered around Danby's tank. The young mammoth looked at them with her wise eyes. She seemed to understand that something was wrong. "What do we do now?" Jiwon asked. Hana put her hand on the tank. Danby immediately swam over and touched her palm with her trunk. The contact sent a strange feeling through Hana's body. It was like a warm current of understanding. "We finish what we started," Hana said. "We helped Danby grow strong enough to leave this place." "Leave?" Minho asked. "Yes," Hana said, never taking her eyes off the mammoth. "We are going to take her to the burning ice. We are going to find out if she can really cross it." "But she is still just a baby," Jiwon protested. "She is growing fast." "Too fast, and she is smart, smarter than we thought possible." Hana smiled. As Danby's trunk touched her hand again, "I think she knows what she was born to do." Outside their hidden room, they could hear the security teams searching the station. The sounds were getting closer. Time was running out. But Hana had a plan, a dangerous, impossible plan that might just work. "How long until she is big enough to carry a person?" she asked Jiwon. "Maybe 2 weeks, but Hana, you cannot be serious." "I am completely serious," Hana said. "We came here to cross the burning ice, and we are going to do it." In her tank, Danby made a soft sound. It was the first sound they had ever heard her make. It sounded almost like agreement. 2 weeks had passed since the security team found their old laboratory. Danby was now the size of a real mammoth, with thick brown fur and intelligent dark eyes. She had grown so fast that even Jiwon was amazed. "Her DNA is working perfectly," Jiwon said as she checked Danby's health. "She is stronger than any Earth mammoth ever was." The young mammoth stood in the larger room that Minho had found for her. It was an old cargo bay that had been forgotten for years. Danby could walk around freely, and she seemed to enjoy stretching her legs. "She learns so fast," Hana said, watching Danby pick up a metal bar with her trunk. "Yesterday I showed her how to open the door. Today she did it by herself." "She is not just smart," Minho said. "She is different. When I look at her, I feel like she is looking into my soul." It was true. Danby had a way of staring at people that made them feel understood. When she looked at Hannah, her eyes seemed to say, "I know why you brought me back. I know what we have to do," but their time was running out. Commander Veltar had brought more security teams to the station. They were searching every room, every tunnel, every hidden space. "They will find us soon," Minho warned. "Maybe tomorrow, maybe the next day." "Then we leave tonight," Hana said. "Leave? Where can we go?" Jawan asked. "This station is the only safe place on the planet." "We go to the burning ice," Hannah said simply. Her friends stared at her. "Hannah." "That is suicide," Jawan said. "No, it is not. Danby can cross it. I know she can. It is in her DNA. It is what she was born to do." "But you do not know for sure," Minho said. "What if you are wrong? What if she cannot handle the radiation?" "Then we will die trying," Hannah said. "But at least we will die as free humans, not as prisoners." That evening, Hannah sat alone with Danby in the cargo bay. The mammoth was resting, but her eyes were open, watching Hannah. "Tomorrow we are going to leave this place," Hannah said softly. "We are going to go to the ice. The dangerous ice that one can cross?" Danby made a low rumbling sound. It was gentle and calm. "I do not know if you understand me," Hannah continued. "But I feel like you do. I feel like you have been waiting for this moment your whole life, even though your whole life has only been a few months." Danby stood up slowly. She walked over to where Hannah was sitting and lowered her great head. Her trunk reached out and gently touched Hannah's face. In that moment, something amazing happened. Hannah felt a connection with Danby that was deeper than anything she had ever experienced. It was not just friendship. It was understanding. It was trust. It was the same bond that the first ones had shared with their mammoth partners millions of years ago. Do you not?" Hannah whispered. "You know about the ice? You know about the crossing?" Danby's eyes seemed to shine with ancient knowledge. She made another rumbling sound, softer this time, then without any warning or training. Danby did something that took Hannah's breath away. The great mammoth slowly lowered herself to the ground. She bent her front legs and lowered her head, making it easy for someone to climb onto her back. "You are asking me to ride you," Hannah said with wonder. Danby remained still, waiting. Hannah had never ridden any animal before. She had never even been close to a real mammoth. But something inside her knew what to do. She reached out and grabbed Danby's thick fur. Then she pulled herself up onto the mammoth's broad back. Danby stood up carefully, making sure Hannah was secure. She was so large that Hannah felt like she was sitting on top of a living mountain. "This is incredible," Hannah whispered. From Danby's back, Hannah could see the whole cargo bay. But more than that, she could feel the mammoth's strength. She could feel Danby's calm confidence. She could feel the ancient memories that lived in the mammoth's DNA. "You know the way, do you not?" Hannah said. "You know how to cross the burning ice." Danby made a sound that Hannah somehow understood as yes. The next morning, Kim Tai-ho and Bae Sumin came to the cargo bay. They had been helping to keep the secret, but they were worried about what Hannah planned to do. "You cannot be serious about this," Sumin said when she saw Hannah sitting on Danby's back. "You cannot ride a mammoth across the most dangerous place on the planet." "Why not?" Hannah asked. "People used to ride mammoths on Earth. The first ones rode mammoths here on Cathara." "Those were different times," Tai-ho said. "This is crazy, even." For you, maybe, Hannah said. But it is the only way to prove that the crossing is possible. And if we do not try now, we will never get another chance. Danby walked over to where Taiho and Sumin were standing. She lowered her head and looked at them with her intelligent eyes. She is asking for your trust, Hannah said. She is asking you to believe in her. Taiho reached out and touched Danby's trunk. The mammoth curled her trunk around his hand gently. She is amazing, he said softly. But Hannah, if something happens to you, nothing will happen to me. Danby will protect me. I know she will, Sumin was crying. I have been studying life on this planet for years. I have never seen anything. Like her, she is not just a mammoth, she is something special. She is hope, Hannah said. That afternoon, Minho brought terrible news. The security teams are in the outer ring. They are checking every room. They will find us by tonight. Then we leave now, Hannah said. In daylight? They will see you as soon as you leave the station. Let them see us. Let them all see us. Let them see that humans do not give up. They quickly gathered supplies. Minho had built a special saddle for Danby with straps to keep Hannah secure. Jiwan packed medical supplies and emergency food. Taiho and Sumin prepared a communication device so they could stay in contact. How will you get out of the station without being seen? Taiho asked. Through the main door, Hannah said. We walk out the front. They will try to stop you. They can try? An hour later, Hannah sat on Danby's back as they approached the station's main entrance. The mammoth walked slowly but confidently. Her thick feet made no sound on the metal floor. The main door was guarded by 2 alien security officers. When they saw Danby, they stepped back in shock. Stop! One of them shouted. You cannot leave the station. Danby kept walking. She was so large that the guards had to move out of her way or be stepped on. I said stop. The guard shouted again. Hannah looked down at him. We are going to cross the burning ice. You can try to stop us, or you can watch us make history. The guard spoke into his communication device. Commander Veltar, the humans are leaving the station. They have a creature with them. Within minutes, Commander Veltar arrived with a full security team. He stared at Danby with all 4 of his eyes wide with shock. What is this creature? He demanded. This is Danby, Hannah said proudly. She is an ice walker, a mammoth. And she is going to do what your people said was impossible. You cannot leave this station, Veltar said. I forbid it. You cannot stop us, Hannah replied. We are not your prisoners. We are explorers and we are going to explore. Danby walked past. The security team toward the outer door. None of the aliens moved to stop her. They were too amazed by what they were seeing. If you leave, you will die, Veltar called out. The burning ice will kill you both. Hannah looked back at him. Maybe, but if we succeed, we will prove that there is always a way. That giving up is not the human way. The outer door opened. Cold air rushed in from the frozen world outside. Danby felt the cold and made a happy sound. This was her world. This was where she belonged. Goodbye, Commander, Hannah said. When we return, we will have quite a story to tell. When you return? Veltar asked. Not if, Hannah said with a smile. When? And with that, Danby carried Hannah out into the frozen wilderness, toward the impossible barrier that no one had ever crossed. Behind them, the entire station watched through the windows as the human and her mammoth walked toward the burning ice. Some thought they were watching a suicide mission. Others thought they were watching history being made. Hannah knew which one it was. She could feel it in Danby's confident stride. She could feel it in her own heart. They were going to make it. They were going to cross the burning ice. The journey to the burning ice took 3 hours. Danby walked steadily across the frozen ground, her huge feet finding safe paths through the snow and ice. Hannah held tight to the special saddle that Minho had made, but she felt secure on the mammoth's broad back as they got closer to the ice field. Hannah could see why everyone called it the burning ice. The ice glowed with a strange white light that hurt to look at. The air above it shimmered like heat waves, even though the temperature was far below freezing. It is beautiful, Hannah said to Danby, and terrifying. Danby made a low rumbling sound. She was not afraid. If anything, she seemed excited. Her trunk reached out toward the glowing ice as if she could smell something familiar. When they reached the edge of the burning ice, Danby stopped. The border was clear. On one side was normal snow and rock. On the other side was ice that glowed like a star. Hannah could feel the radiation even from a distance. Her skin tingled and her equipment began to beep warnings. The temperature was so cold that her breath froze instantly. "This is it," she said. This is where everyone else turned back, but Danby did not turn back. She took a step forward onto the glowing ice. Immediately, something amazing happened. Danby's fur began to glow with the same white light as the ice. The radiation that would kill any other living thing was being absorbed by her body. She was eating the deadly energy and changing it into something harmless. "You really can do it," Hannah whispered with wonder. "You really can walk on the burning ice." Danby took another step, then another. Each step was careful and sure. She seemed to know exactly where to place her feet. She seemed to know which parts of the ice were safe and which parts were dangerous. As they moved deeper into the ice field, Hannah saw why no one had ever crossed it before. The ice was not flat. It rose up in sharp points that could cut like knives. It dropped down into deep cracks that had no bottom. Strange storms of ice and light swept across the surface without warning, but Danby knew how to navigate all of it. When a storm approached, she would find shelter behind ice formations. When the ice cracked under her weight, she would quickly move to solid ground. When the radiation grew stronger, her fur would glow brighter to absorb it. "You have done this before," Hannah said. "Not you personally, but your ancestors." They knew this path. Danby's genetic memory was guiding her. Millions of years ago, her ancestors had walked this same route. They had learned which parts of the ice were safe. They had learned how to survive the radiation and the cold and the storms. After 2 hours of walking, they came to the most dangerous part of the crossing. The ice here was broken into huge pieces that moved and shifted. Between the pieces were gaps filled with deadly radiation fog. Hannah's equipment was screaming warnings. The radiation here was strong enough to kill a human in minutes, but Danby walked forward without fear. "I trust you," Hannah said, leaning forward to pat Danby's neck. "I trust you completely." Danby began to jump from ice piece to ice piece. Each jump was perfect. She landed exactly where she needed to land. She never slipped. She never hesitated. Halfway across the shifting ice, they found something that made Hannah's heart stop. It was the remains of an alien exploration team. Their metal suits were scattered across the ice, frozen solid. "They tried so hard," Hannah said sadly. "They were brave, but they did not have you." Danby stopped for a moment and looked at the alien remains. She made a soft sound that seemed like respect for the dead explorers. Then she continued across the ice. As they got closer to the far side of the burning ice, Hannah began to see something in the distance. At first, she thought it was just more ice. But as they got closer, she realized it was something else. It was green. Green grass. Green trees. A whole valley that was warm and alive. "Impossible," Hannah breathed. "There's a whole ecosystem over here." The radiation from the burning ice was not just a barrier. It was a protective wall. It kept the valley hidden and safe from the outside world. The ice field worked like a giant greenhouse, trapping heat and creating a perfect environment for life. Danby reached the edge of the ice field and stepped onto normal ground. Immediately, her fur stopped glowing. She had crossed the impossible barrier. Hannah climbed down from Danby's back and stood on the ground. Her legs were shaky from the long ride, but she felt amazing. They had done it. They had crossed the burning ice. "We made it," she said, hugging Danby's trunk. "We actually made it." The valley spread out before them. It was like a hidden paradise. There were forests of strange trees with blue leaves. There were streams of clear water. There were flowers that glowed with soft colors, and there were ruins. Ancient buildings that had been perfectly preserved by the ice field's protection. "The first ones," Hannah said with excitement. "This is where they lived before they left the planet." She activated her communication device. It crackled with static because of all the radiation, but she could hear voices on the other end. Taiho? Can you hear me? Hana. Taiho's voice was filled with relief. Are you alive? Are you safe? We made it? We crossed the burning ice. Danby and I are on the other side. There was silence on the radio. Then Taiho's voice came back, filled with amazement. You really did it. You actually did it. There is so much here, Hana said, looking around the valley. Resources, ruins, an entire ecosystem. This place could support thousands of colonists. The commander wants to talk to you, Taiho said a moment later. Commander Veltar's voice came through the radio. Dr. Lee, is this some kind of trick? No trick, Commander. I'm sending you video data now. Hana activated her camera and began recording the valley. She showed the green plants, the clear water, the ancient ruins. She showed that the burning ice had not been a barrier to keep people out. It had been a protection system to keep this paradise safe. This is incredible, Veltar said. How is this possible? The first ones were very smart, Hana said. They created the burning ice to protect their home, and they left the mammoths as the key to crossing it. But how will others cross? Not everyone has a mammoth. Hana looked at Danby. The mammoth was eating some of the blue-leafed plants and seemed very happy. Danby is not the only one, Hana said. We have her DNA. We can bring back more ice walkers. We can create a whole herd of them. You want to bring back an extinct species? They are not extinct anymore. Danby is proof of that, and she will not be alone for long. Over the next few hours, Hana explored the valley with Danby. They found mineral deposits that were worth more than anything in the known galaxy. They found fresh water sources that could supply a large colony. They found buildings that contained ancient technology, but most importantly, they found something else. In the ruins of the first one city, they found more preserved DNA. Not just mammoth DNA, but the genetic patterns of many creatures that had once lived on Cathara. This place is not just a hidden valley, Hana said into her radio. It is a genetic library. The first ones preserved the DNA of every species on their planet before they left. Why would they do that? Veltar asked. Because they knew that someday someone would come who could bring life back to this world. Someone who would not give up. Someone who would cross the impossible. Hana looked at Danby, who was playing in a stream like a giant, happy child. They were waiting for us, she said. The first ones, the mammoths, this whole planet, they were waiting for someone stubborn enough to try the impossible. As the sun set over the hidden valley, Hana sat next to Danby and watched the strange, beautiful sky. Tomorrow, they would begin the journey back. They would cross the burning ice again, but this time they would not be alone. The other humans at the station were already preparing to follow. The aliens were making plans for a new colony. And somewhere in the genetic library of the first ones, the DNA of dozens of extinct species waited to live again. The burning ice was no longer a barrier. It was a bridge to a new future. 3 days later, Hana and Danby began their journey back across the burning ice, but this time they were not alone. Hana carried with her samples of the first one's genetic library and detailed maps of the hidden valley. The return trip was easier. Danby knew the path now, and she moved with confidence across the glowing ice. She seemed proud of what they had accomplished. Every step was strong and sure. When they reached the edge of the ice field, Hana could see the research station in the distance, but something was different. There were more lights than usual. More activity. Looks like word has spread, Hana said to Danby as they got closer. Hana could see that the station was full of new ships. Alien vessels from different worlds had arrived. Everyone wanted to see the mammoth that had crossed the impossible barrier, Kim. Taiho was the first to greet them at the station entrance. He ran out into the snow and hugged Hana as she climbed down from Danby's back. You did it, he said, tears in his eyes. You really did it. The whole galaxy is talking about you. Not just me, Hana said, patting Danby's side. We did it together. Commander Veltar approached more slowly. His forearms were spread wide, in a gesture of respect. Behind him walked representatives from a dozen different alien species. "Dr. Lee," Veltar said formally, "on behalf of the Galactic Council, I offer our apologies. We were wrong to doubt you. We were wrong to try to stop." You were just being careful," Hannah said. "I understand. But sometimes being too careful means missing great opportunities." "The Council has reviewed your discoveries," said a new voice. Hannah turned to see a tall, elegant alien with golden skin. "I am Ambassador Thera from the Central Worlds. We are prepared to offer you anything you need to continue your work." "I do not want payment," Hannah said. "I want partnership. I want all of our species to work together to bring this planet back to life." Over the next week, the research station became the center of the galaxy's attention. Scientists, diplomats, and explorers arrived daily. Everyone wanted to study Danby and learn about the crossing, but Hannah had bigger plans. She worked with Jiwan to begin creating more mammoths. Using the genetic samples from the Hidden Valley, they started growing not just ice walkers, but other creatures that had once lived on Cathara. "Look at this," Jiwan said one morning, showing Hannah a new tank in their laboratory. Inside was a small creature that looked like a cross between a bird and a lizard. "This is a wind dancer. According to the first one's records, they could fly in storms that would ground any spacecraft." "And this one," Minho said, pointing to another tank, "is called a stone singer. It could find mineral deposits just by listening to the ground." Baisumin was working with the plant DNA. The first ones preserved the seeds of hundreds of plants. Some of them can grow in ice. Others can clean poison from the air. We could terraform this entire planet using their genetic library. But the most exciting development was happening in the main laboratory. Danby was not alone anymore. 3 more mammoth calves were growing in special tanks. They would be ready to be born in just a few weeks. "Danby will have a family," Hannah said, watching the young mammoths floating in their tanks. "And we will have a herd of ice walkers," Taiho added. "Enough to carry expedition teams across the ice regularly." Commander Veltar visited the laboratory often. He was fascinated by the work being done. "In all my years of exploration," he told Hannah, "I have never seen anything like this. You have not just crossed an impossible barrier. You have opened a door to a new age." The first crossing expedition happened 2 months after Hannah's original journey. This time, 5 humans and 5 aliens rode on the backs of newly grown mammoths. Danby led the group, with Hannah on her back as always. The crossing was successful. The expedition brought back enough rare minerals to fund a permanent colony. They also brought back more genetic samples and detailed studies of the Hidden Valley. "The valley can support a city of 50,000 people," Hannah reported to the Galactic Council. "We can build homes, farms, research centers. We can make Cathara a garden world again." But Hannah's greatest success came 6 months later. The first permanent colonists crossed the burning ice on Mammoth Back. Humans and aliens working together, riding the great ice walkers across the glowing barrier that had once seemed impossible to cross. The colony grew quickly. The Hidden Valley became a bustling city called New Hope. The genetic library of the first ones was used to bring back dozens of extinct species. The planet began to come alive again. Danby became the leader of a herd of 30 mammoths. She was the first and the largest, and all the other ice walkers looked to her for guidance. But she always saved her gentlest moments for Hannah, every morning. Hannah would visit Danby in the mammoth enclosure outside New Hope. The great creature would always kneel down, just as she had that first night in the station, and let Hannah climb onto her back. "Good morning, old friend," Hannah would say, and Danby would rumble her reply. They would ride together through the valley, checking on the new colonies, visiting the ancient ruins, exploring the growing city. Sometimes they would just sit by the river and watch the strange, beautiful birds that had been brought back from extinction 1 year after the first crossing. Hannah stood on a platform in the center of New Hope. Below her, thousands of colonists from dozens of worlds had gathered. Humans and aliens lived and worked together in harmony. "When I first saw the burning ice," Hannah said to the crowd, Everyone told me it was impossible to cross. They said no one could survive the radiation, the cold, the storms. The crowd listened quietly. They were right, Hannah continued. No one could cross it alone, but that is the secret. We were never meant to cross it alone. We were meant to work together. Humans and aliens. The living and the memories of the dead. The present and the past. She gestured to where Danby stood with her herd at the edge of the crowd. The mammoth's eyes found Hannah's, and she made her gentle rumbling sound. The first ones left us a gift, Hannah said, not just their genetic library, but their wisdom. They knew that someday different species would come to their world. They knew that we would need their help to cross the barriers that divide us. The burning ice was never meant to keep us out. It was meant to keep the treasures safe until we learned to work together, until we learned to trust each other. Hannah climbed down from the platform and walked over to Danby. The mammoth knelt down, and Hannah climbed onto her back one more time. Today, ships from every world in the galaxy can cross the burning ice safely, Hannah said. They ride on the backs of the ice walkers. They work together as partners, not as strangers. She looked out over the crowd, then up at the sky where alien ships flew alongside human vessels. The barriers that seem impossible to cross are not really barriers at all, she said. They are tests. They are waiting for us to find the right way, the right partner, the right moment of trust. Danby stood up and began to walk toward the city's edge, where the burning ice glowed in the distance. Other mammoths followed, carrying their riders toward new adventures. And sometimes, Hannah said with a smile, all it takes is one moment when someone kneels down and lets you climb on. As they reached the edge of the burning ice, Hannah looked back at New Hope. The city was beautiful, full of life and hope and cooperation. It was everything the first ones had dreamed of when they left their genetic gifts behind. Danby stepped onto the glowing ice, her fur beginning to shine with absorbed radiation. Behind them, other mammoths followed, carrying explorers and scientists and dreamers toward whatever lay beyond the next impossible barrier. The burning ice was no longer a wall. It was a bridge. And Hannah knew that as long as humans and their alien friends had the courage to trust each other, no barrier would ever be truly impossible to cross again. In the distance, new ice fields glowed with different colors, promising new challenges and new discoveries. Danby rumbled happily and began to walk toward them, carrying her human friend toward the next impossible thing that they would make possible together.